Hi, this is Tom and Heather from Shadowfields. This is Mitt's Monday in the studio.
Monday in the studio. Please like our page, share it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on that notification bell so you can always be with us when we're online.
You shouldn't be looking down here. You should look up
Oh,
here at the
hi,
camera.
Kurt, Tony,
Hey, Tony.
Becky.
Hi, Becky.
Oh, and Steve. Becky and Steve, have you been out camping? Where have you been?
Camping?
Yes, they go to this place near their house, which is just it's actually very beautiful. It's on this like big lake and it's beautiful woods and
Some
yeah.
people.
You know what? I know these people. I've
Yes,
seen where they
yeah.
live and the
Some people's
beautifulness.
camping. People have various levels
Glamping.
of camping.
Yeah, like the 3-decker. I saw a 3-decker.
Well, some people
bus.
like camping. When I was growing up, camping was a tent.
Yeah.
On the hard ground. There was no air mattresses.
Right. Yeah.
It was camping on the ground. That's why I'm crippled now. That was camping.
Sorry.
And then camping for the adults at that point in time was a camper.
Yeah, or the pop-up camper.
Yeah, pop-up camper.
They go,
yep.
Yeah.
So they had that. For a lot of people, camping is going to a hotel in a different place.
No.
Yeah.
So Becky says they sure have. Yeah. So you'll have to tell us, all of you, what is your version of camping? If it's a tent or if it's not camping.
Maybe it's a cabin. It could be a cabin. Maybe they think
that's children's. You were in your tent camping. That was children's camping. See, I didn't say that at all. She did.
Mm-hmm.
But we went from, my family had one of those pop-up trailers, and that was a nightmare because you were talking about 6 people in that. It wasn't like you had 2 and 2. Like we would have kids in the middle of the floor too. So if anybody had to go to the bathroom on either mattress on the sides, you're like, people are all over you. And then we went to one of those trailers, like you could take the table area and turn it into a bed. You had a bed over there. You had other beds. We had a little bit.
Did you keep this in your driveway or something?
It was off to the side. It was like
really?
We had.
How often did you use this?
Maybe 2 times a year. My dad would drop us all off somewhere. Bye-bye, family. Woo!
He didn't stay?
No. He always had jobs and stuff in the summertime. But
wow.
That's where I would learn how to eat, what's that, Laffy Taffy, and my mom would give us money and then we would just go buy stuff out from the tuck shop, the candy store, whatever. Yeah. You know what? Yes, I was an elegant camper.
Yeah. Did you ever camp in a tent?
Of course. I like that too.
I don't believe you.
So I went out to Lake Carroll camping with the family.
Oh, spiders.
And then we got this big Jeep tent. And the whole fun thing was that it said
Jeep tent.
Well, it's made by Jeep, but it has separate rooms. So it had in the front. I mean, it's this gigantic tent. And in the front, it has kind of like, oh, this is where you put the table, and you have the zipper thing. And then you go into this other room, which is kind of, the anteroom before you get to the other rooms. And then there's like 2 rooms in the back. So it was like amazing. And it had little pockets and everything. We still actually have it.
I'm sure it hasn't had any dry rot or anything like that.
No, it doesn't. What is this? What am I getting? I'm getting some heat off of this. Anyway, we took it out to Lake Carroll and we used to have property out there.
Do you still have property out there?
No, we sold it for a penny. We stopped paying on it, but because we never built anything on it. But we bought like almost an acre and a half or so of land out there. And so we'd go out there and we would go camping. They had a pool, all kinds of things. But we had the worst wind that was out there. And so the wind and the rain, it really felt like when we had small kids, like it was going to take the tent up, whoo, and we were going to disappear. But yeah, we've done lots of tent camping. I have a really sad story about camping, but I'm not going to share it here. This is an uplifting show. Okay. This is
a sad story you're not going to share?
This is an uplifting show. Steve wants to know why Tom is Mr. Negativity. About me and my
I,
ability to keep things nice? Well,
I am not negative. I am absolutely positive about all these
he's
things.
positive about his negativity.
I'm positively negative.
Anyway, so we're excited to have you back, Becky and Steve. This is great. So they've got AC, heat, bathroom, shower beds, old people camping. So you must be in a camper. And then Tony is backpacking camping for 2 weeks is my favorite. Oh, is that by yourself,
No,
Tony?
I
Or
think
is it
he
with
goes
a
with scouts and stuff like that. And
mm-hmm. Yeah,
I,
Kurt hasn't told us what his favorite camping is.
I don't think I could camp anymore.
No way.
My back would not be able to survive. I would be crippled the next day at this point.
Maybe what you need is camping. Maybe knowing the type of individual you are, you're rugged, and you're like Braveheart.
I
And
was.
and then like
I was
you've
until
been
that.
in soft, mattresses, and now your body's like, I'm tired. I really just want stone.
I was a manly man, tough and strong until the piano
I can't blame that on myself.
at the Cubby Bear
Oh, RV.
blew out my back, and
Mm-hmm.
since then I'm pretty wimpy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kurt, you're talking an RV?
I don't know if an RV can be considered camping.
It
I know
is.
many
I
people
think it
say it's
is.
camping. But then you could say anywhere that's not home is camping, which that's what my mother-in-law's camping is going to a hotel, going
That's
to a nice
brilliant.
hotel
Yeah.
that has a really nice breakfast and a pool.
Yes.
That's camping.
That's camping. And free breakfast. Or maybe
Yeah.
I've been to some hotels lately, which they're trying to entice you to come. So, or get the, singles to come there. So they have between 5 and 7, they have, like free wine and then like hors
In the
d'oeuvres and
morning?
stuff. No, at night.
Oh, okay.
So they try to get you to come in and to have hors d'oeuvres and appetizers so they can, make you feel good about the fact that you came there. So it's not just breakfast, but they give you this like, happy hour at these hotels. So camping, I'm not that you cannot include that in camping. Your mother-in-law would not be able to include that. That is clearly resort living, and that's not camping.
I don't know.
I'll talk with your
I don't know.
I'll talk with your mother-in-law.
Okay.
All right. So, what's been going on? Talk about the studio. What's been happening? Break it down for everyone. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. I'm gonna go open the door. So what have you been doing in the studio?
Well, we had open mic last week,
Mm-hmm.
and we have had multiple people in the studio,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been doing lots of recording
Mm-hmm.
and mixing.
So why like we have been bringing
Well,
a lot
that's
of people in,
it's
right?
kind of the topic for this evening. What are
Yeah.
we doing, and why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously we have a band. What you have to read anything that comes
To
up.
camp is now a huge investment. Tent camping in the backyard. In my youth, yes, Tom, not great for backs.
No, not at all.
I think Kurt's got your number.
Yeah.
So we've been working with some musicians in the community, and you've always worked with people. Like
Yeah.
it's an ongoing thing where you've had some folks in the studio, but I think we've been meeting some folks within the open mic that have interest in putting their music down and having somebody produce it. But why do you kind of talk about a little bit why we're doing it?
Well, I think back about when I started out, there was nobody that like would believe in you and provide you with some opportunities to record.
Right.
I recorded a lot when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, 30s, and not so much in my early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I raised kids from like mid 30s to mid 40s. I was way heavy into that, which I didn't do as much recording. But I just remember spending a fortune on studios.
Yeah.
And I got into owning gear at one point. It was probably in the mid 80s or whatever, we had spent so much money over the years going to studios,
Mhm.
and some of the early studios that I was at, the product that I ended up with, I was unhappy with. And so what we'd start doing is we'd record as much as we could with whatever gear we could get.
Right.
And then we'd take those tapes to another studio, upload them onto a larger machine. Then I would kind of like take over that studio,
Mhm.
much to the
To the
chagrin of the owner. And I would have wires everywhere because I would
Mhm.
always want more than what was physically possible. So I taught myself the art of recording,
Mhm.
and I just got way into it because I'm just as much into that. There's a creative aspect of it,
Mhm.
and there's also an engineering, thinking of it,
Mhm.
and I did a lot of electronics engineering. I've made a lot of things. I've written a lot of software. I've made a lot of hardware, and the studio kind of combines
Yeah, all of
all that
those. Yep.
with the musicality plus the electronics portion of it,
Mhm.
um, and the endless purchases.
Right. So is the intent to like specifically help artists then kind of reduce some of the costs, or is it to perfect our art as producers, engineers, and mixers, or
Uh,
what are you
I
thinking?
don't know that I need to produce others to perfect anything. I
Hmm.
mean, we've
We've
put
got
out
enough of ourselves, I
well,
think.
we've got 7 albums, and it's more of a chance to maybe build a small community
Hmm.
of creative people. That's like, the studio is called Greenhouse.
Hmm.
So, obviously it's a greenhouse.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I also think about greenhouses being a place where things grow,
Right.
and creativity grows
Hmm.
within the studio.
Yeah.
And the idea is just to develop some sense of community so that artists don't feel that they're going it alone.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think in Nashville, I think there's more of a sense of community.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, a lot of different artists are based around specific studios, which there's a studio on every street
Right.
corner kind
Music
of thing.
Row. Yeah.
Um, but there's nothing like that really here, and it Chicago seems to be kind of like a dog eat dog kind of thing, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Where it's I'm out for myself,
Hmm.
and if you want any of this, you are going to pay a lot of money for it.
Right. Right.
And you know, we've both worked day jobs our entire lives, and we've amassed in the studio a large amount of gear that rivals anything you can get anywhere.
Microphones, for instance,
Microphones are just one small piece
of our
all
tool.
the
Yeah.
of all the stuff that we have at our disposal. Um,
So
but
what's the benefit to them
well,
as creative
obviously,
community?
I don't think that they would be able to do this on their own.
Mhm.
I mean, they could go hire a studio,
Mhm.
but then they need to know a lot more about it. Are they going to produce themselves?
I think,
Can they engineer themselves? Those are two more people that they have to hire. Can they
mhm.
mix it themselves, or is that another person they have to hire?
Right,
You
right.
know, and
What we are hearing from the community um is that a lot of times when they go to other places that they talk big, but then once a person goes in and starts working with them, and like it's half done, or it doesn't ever get to be the point where they like it, so they just don't even do anything with it. And I think that's actually what we're trying to not do, is to actually finish it. Once you start it, you finish it. And there's a hope of, is this really going to be able to something that I can release, right?
yeah.
And I think that's something that I know that you're pretty strong on, that if once we start it, we're going to finish it,
Well,
and we'll get that kind of brand as folks that actually are supporting the creative arts here.
that kind of reminds me of a story about my past. Back in the '80s, when I was recording with a group named Damascus, and we traveled, and it was kind of like, not the same kind of music we do now.
Right.
It was progressive art rock, and we were working on our third album, I believe it was, and we went and we spent a fortune at the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got back the final master tapes to listen to it, I was so disheartened.
Mm-hmm.
We put the whole project on
Yeah.
hold
Yep.
for over a year. I was so depressed that I got this thing. I'd worked to death on this, and it was terrible. It
Yeah.
just sounded horrible.
Right.
And so, um, I waited a year, and that's when I made friends with another studio owner who would allow me to take over,
Oh, cool. Yeah.
and I was able to redo the entire album
Mm-hmm.
to something that, we could be proud of,
Right.
given our budget and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really expensive back
Mm-hmm.
then.
I
Back
think there's a fallacy now that you can get a computer, you can put like, Cubase or Nuendo on it, and anybody can create their own art.
Well, they
But you
can. They can. You can buy Pro Tools, but everybody
but
everybody
never not
buys a
not
little bit of
everybody
gear and
has
then they
that.
say, "I'm a producer."
Right. Not everybody can actually doesn't have like the sound engineering mind that you have, or I think you need to have like the whole package. You need to have the engineering mindset, the artist, the musician, right? You there's something about like Hans Zimmer, he started as a guitarist, right? And so he had like some understanding of how things sound, what a guitar sounds like, way before he was playing around with, creating
Do you know
the
what
big
group Hans
scores.
Zimmer played with early?
Well, let me think. Ah, no,
The
but
Buggles. Radio
okay.
killed
The
the
the rate no,
video
Video
killed the
killed the
radio
radio
star.
star.
Hans Zimmer was part of the Buggles early on.
See, now you're making me blush because I didn't know it.
Yeah. So,
But I'm just saying that not everybody can do that, and I think there's
well,
like, oh, get this great, product, and anybody can do it.
the thing is that obviously I have years of experience doing it, but I didn't want
No
my
comment.
water
No
anyway.
comment.
The thing is that say you decide that you want to do this and you want to be the artist and you want to produce yourself and you want to do all the engineering, that is great. And I encourage people to do that.
Right.
But you have to go in understanding that it's going to be years
The technology
as
is
you
not easy. It's like reverse and backwards and upside down, and
it's not even there's a certain point of not even knowing what you're hearing, and how do I fix that?
and your speakers are always going to give you something different. Like it's absolutely crazy the amount of details that you have to be able to manage in order to produce a song that's like even a simple song.
Well, I think that's why I think artists need to decide for themselves, do I want to be an artist
Right.
or do I want to be a producer engineer?
Right.
It kind of goes one way or the other.
Becky said there's doing it and then it's doing it well.
Yeah.
And then also experience means a lot in the industry, and that is very true.
Well, the whole thing is that I want to put out things that can compete against anything that's out there.
Right.
Not just like, just because your mom says it's good, that doesn't make it good. Seriously, because your family always applauds you and says,
Right.
"Oh, great job," that means nothing.
Right.
Get your stuff out there, listen to it, and have it be competing against Adele,
Right. Yeah.
Billie Eilish,
Whatever is your
something that's
reference.
a current thing that's in the genre that you want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Compare it against that. Does it measure up?
Right.
If it doesn't measure up, you don't have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be back. Hate to keep going back to the 80s, but that was when I was most active. And a label, you could send them a demo,
Right.
and the labels would
Right.
listen to the demos, and they could understand it was a demo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, labels aren't interested in demos. If you want a label to be interested, you send them a finished master,
Right.
and they'll decide if they're going to buy it. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't send them some rough thing. They aren't interested in a rough thing.
Right. And it's interesting when we bring certain folks into the studio, we really have to, think about like what is their role in the actual creation process, because one person actually is kind of like helping us co-produce it because almost helping us arrange it, his own music, because he's the one that, is doing the guitar playing. He's the main vocalist, and he has ideas about what the drum should sound like. He has ideas about the parts for a cello. He has and so he's actually doing that. Where another, folks that come in here, they're only the singer, and they've got this kind of maybe guitar lick, but it's not necessarily all put together. And so you're doing more. So what's the difference between like the producer, the engineer, and the mixer? What are those? I mean, because
Well,
we're seeing it with the people that we're bringing in,
I
but from your
I think
perspective, what are they?
when I think of a producer, um, the producer is, the Beatles had a fifth member, and that fifth member would have been George Martin
Okay,
because he made them what they were.
sure.
He walked them through the process. They were just a bunch of kids. They didn't know how to arrange music and how to, there was a lot of big arrangements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He helped them realize that. So maybe they'd have an idea like, hey, could you make it sound more purple?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, well, here's how we make it purple.
Right.
So a producer, technically speaking, is not the guy twisting the knobs.
Mm-hmm.
He's not that guy. The producer is helping with the song arrangement. He's
Mm-hmm.
helping with how your performance is and helping you to attain another level.
Mm-hmm.
It's never. I suppose there's some producers that might be very much hands off,
Mm-hmm.
but most producers are very hands on,
Right.
and the product at the end is nearly equal
Mm-hmm.
to what the band has brought to that, in that they've helped shape it. Because you can find pitfalls, like somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to do it this way" or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but as a third party that's not connected to that music, you might think that your idea was phenomenal, but me listening to it, I might say, "That's embarrassing. You can't say those words because they're embarrassing."
Right.
And you're like, "No, I really mean that. I
It's
really
kind of
feel
like the
that."
conscience of the song in some ways, or the conscience of the how the universe is going to feel about the song, because it's about feeling. It's about
Yeah.
allowing
Well,
them to
that's all you're
feel
trying to
that
do is
song,
make
right?
people feel something with
Yeah.
music.
It's kind of like having the sensitivity to that.
So the producer is going to walk them through the entire process from beginning to end. He's like their buddy,
Right.
and a lot of the producers that I listen to in podcasts and stuff like that, they talk about that, you know, 70-80% of their job is being a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does that make you feel?
Does anybody
It's
think
that kind
that's
of
my job?
that's
This probably is my job.
they the producer is like the person just trying to get them to feel right,
Mm-hmm.
to encourage them.
Would you like a glass of water?
Yeah. And then,
Would you
all
like
right,
some
so,
Coke? Remember me asking Jimmy,
oh yeah.
Coke. Can we go to the comments just for a minute? Because
Yeah, go
Gary,
ahead.
Gary J, engineering and producing is as much as a developed creative art as the musicianship. It takes hours of practice,
It
which,
does. It
yeah,
does. And I got to say that, some of my early things were not all that great. I'm not saying that I've arrived or anything like that, but it's progressively gotten better.
right, right.
The more years you put into it, the better you get, and you realize, you do need to have some, I could go into details about
Mm-hmm.
pitfalls that you run into. But you have the producer that's basically kind of like the musical mentor in some way.
Yep,
But
yep.
then you have the engineer. That's the knob twiddler.
Mm-hmm.
The knob twiddler is really important
Yeah.
because you think about great albums. When I want to listen to something I feel has been recorded extremely well,
Mm-hmm.
I like to listen to Seal 4.
Oh, I like Seal.
I really like Seal, but I especially like Trevor Horn.
Mm-hmm.
He's a phenomenal producer, but Trevor does not do the knob twisting.
Right.
He'll talk to the people, just like Rick Rubin. He'll talk to the
Rick
engineer
Rubin,
and
unbelievable.
he'll say, "Hey, I'm looking for this. I want those vocals dry.
Mm-hmm.
Dry them up. Get them in my face."
Mm-hmm.
He'll talk like that, or that's what a producer will say. And the engineer has to be able to take random ideas from people and be able to make that a reality.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to make, like Eddie Van Halen always called his guitar sound the brown sound. What is
yeah.
that? Yeah. It has nothing to do with bowel movements or
Okay.
anything like that. But
Yeah.
what does that mean
What's
to
purple
have,
mean?
yeah, what does purple mean?
Yeah.
Or, make it more sunshiny.
Mm-hmm.
What do those things mean?
Right. Right.
But an engineer can take what people are saying and they know that, oh, if I add this type of compression with this kind of ratio and these
Mhm.
type of attack and release settings, I'll be able to get that they're looking for.
So do you ever get mixed up in your role? Like, do one role really well and then the other one you fumble at? Like, because you're doing sometimes, and and I'm in the room too, but there's not a lot. I mean, I've got some things that I'm working on. I'm doing the psychologist thing, making people feel, fine. But do you ever get mixed up with, oh gosh, I should have spent more time on this role when they were here versus this role?
Well, I'd say probably that my analytical side of me is more in tune and on all the time.
Hmm.
I can't get rid of that part of me when I should be thinking more about just the production thing,
Got
because
it.
I'm also
Yeah.
watching meters.
Right.
And
Right.
if this was a great take and we just lost it because the level wasn't correct,
Hmm.
you know, that's no good at
Then you
all.
got to have me do more of the engineering. I mean, I'm not like pushing it
I
out
no,
there,
I'm
but
saying that you'd probably need to do more of the, coddling.
okay.
Um,
So then you've got another one. You've got like the mixer. So you've got
yeah,
like,
you got a
right, you got
producer, you got
producer,
an engineer.
right.
A typical record is going to have the producer
Mhm.
that works with the engineer. The
Right.
engineer usually has an assistant. The
Mhm.
assistant is the silent person.
Shh, quiet.
There's like this
That's me, not me at all then.
there's this thing, if you're an assistant on a session, you're
Yeah.
assistant engineer on a session, you never say a word and you do not voice your opinion.
Mm.
That is a that's the way you can get fired. If
I'd
you
be fired.
if you have an idea or anything like that, you never bring it up.
Ugh.
After the session's over, you can talk to the main engineer, the head
Mhm.
engineer, and say, "Hey, what about such and such, or why did you do this?"
Mhm.
But you never
Right.
assistants are silent.
You can be seen but not heard.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then there's the mixing engineer. When the album is done, they've recorded everything. Often, they don't want to mix it. They'll
Mhm.
send it to somebody else, like a Chris Lord-Alge or a Tom Lord-Alge or any number of
They send it
like
out to
an Eric
another.
Valentine
Right.
or somebody that's all they do
Mhm.
is mix. Bob Clearmountain was like the number one mixing engineer. He was basically the very first mixing engineer, late 70s. Um, Bob Clearmountain was responsible for like, remember the 80s snare with the
Oh yes, it was lovely.
the big gigantic snare sound like Born in the USA by
Right.
Bruce
Yep.
Springsteen. It's funny, but Bob did not want that, but that's what
That's what they wanted.
that's what they wanted, and they said, "I want this gigantic snare drum," which then became the ubiquitous thing that happened on every 80s song was this giant snare, what was basically a shot of white noise, you
Mhm.
know, and, he hated it,
Yeah.
but he became famous for that, but that's all he did. He
Mhm.
just mixes,
Yeah.
and, he's done some phenomenal stuff. His work with Tears for Fears,
Oh, I love
some of the
that.
greatest mixes ever, and, but all he does is he takes what the engineer has given him. He's got the raw files now. In some cases, nowadays, the stuff comes in a digital form. So you can get the session that already has all the effects and stuff like that in the, if you're working in the same DAW, digital
Mhm.
audio workstation.
Mhm.
Like if I was using Pro Tools and somebody sent me something in Pro Tools, I would see what they did.
Right.
And then
Right.
I can take and listen to what they've done, and I could say, how can I make what they did
Even
better?
better. Yeah.
And
With the
that's what
tools that you have.
exactly, that's
Yeah.
what a mix engineer would probably
That's
do.
cool. That's really
Back in the
cool.
day, they would not even have anything. They would have just the raw tracks.
Right.
They wouldn't have any effects or anything
Mhm.
like that, unless the effects were recorded.
So we wanted to chat with you all tonight because we are working with folks a lot. And there'll potentially be some songs that are going to be coming out of Greenhouse. And we wanted to share that with you. And also that we are working on the craft of, and honestly, we're trying to figure out how to work together as well with the artists because maybe I should be the silent person, but I do have some opinions, but they're more like a Rick Rubin. It's like a taste. Like he's not that. I'm no Rick Rubin, but I do have.
Fortunately.
I do have some ideas, right, or around like, hey, maybe if we do this here, maybe we could do that there, and you and I are, kind of working that out. But I think it's been a pretty good partnership with our creative community, and we're hoping
and
to
it
have some really
is
good
it's
stuff
a
coming out
learning
of it.
process for us
Yep.
because
Yep.
we haven't really done this on a large scale. And
Hmm.
the people I've worked with in the past, it's always just been me and another person.
Yeah.
And typically they would come in, they'd have a song, they'd do whatever it was that they did. Like, oh, I'm just a singer,
Hmm.
but I have these melodies, and I'd work it out, and I'd play the piano and we get that down. And then I'd put everything kind of like what you and I started doing
Hmm.
early
When you
on.
were my producer friend.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was
Hmm.
originally, as this your
Hmm.
producer friend.
Yep.
And now it's it's an interesting thing to work together with other people.
It's
And
been great.
obviously, we've talked about it before, that we don't want people to get the wrong idea. We banter back and forth as far as we're both passionate about music, and we
Yeah.
both have ideas,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, so I do have another question from, well, it doesn't surprise you, it's Gary J, but he says, what is the title of the guy who tries to sing violin parts during recording session?
that would be the producer. The producer.
I think we're also missing the fact that Tom is an excellent arranger as well. And
Oh, we
so
didn't even
when,
talk about an arranger. You
yeah,
can
we
hire
won't,
a
we'll
ranger,
do
but
that another time. Um, but are we teaching these skills to the people too? Um,
a little bit, but
I think they're learning, like the people who are like co-producers, they're learning a lot. And I mean, we can talk about what happens when we come into the, if you guys have 3 more minutes,
well, we had it
we,
just the other night where when we were doing a drum session,
yeah.
and
And Tom was tuning the drums. And I don't know how many of you know, but you can tune a drum to a certain key and the key to the song in which you're recording. And
I
so,
always feel that's important. A lot of
yeah,
drummers just, tune it
they
until it
tweak it.
sounds fine to them. But in my mind, if somebody's gonna play a fill, doom 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 doom,
Yeah, it
if
should
that's
be in the key.
if that's in the wrong key, it's gonna clash, and no matter what you do, it's always gonna sound a little off.
Right.
And so you know, that was a little bit of a learning thing for them
Well, Tom was tuning, like we were doing 2 songs, so he was tuning the drums,
between the songs.
and this co-producer was like, "Oh, what's that? Like, never done that." And the other person in the studio was like, "Yo, never seen you do that with your drums." He's like, "I didn't know." So I think, yeah, and I think that's part of it, is when you're creating a community that you can learn from each other, and I think that's the cool thing about
Yeah.
this as well.
So we're trying to build community. We're trying to help people that are younger, and they don't have to be younger; they could be
No,
older.
that can be
But
older.
just helping
Yeah.
artists be able to fulfill some of their musical dreams.
Yeah.
We don't guarantee any kind of stardom,
Right.
because what is that even? I think
I think it's actually,
success is
yeah.
being able to do something that you love for the rest of your life. That is
Right.
a success.
Right. Even if you're not making tons of money at it, it's just, going out and getting $200 for a gig or whatever. I think,
Think about how many artists
let's
that
play music.
think about people that just skyrocketed,
Yeah.
and
And they
now
fall.
they're working at Wendy's.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Right.
you might become really hugely famous for this one little moment in time, but then you have to do something else with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And for a lot of them, they've just given up because they wanted to be stars,
Yeah.
because that was their goal, was to be a star, a celebrity. And
Mhm.
that's what's happening a lot in music right now. We have a lot of celebrities,
That's
but not a
true.
lot of great artists.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is help people become great artists.
Yep. So that's our show for today. And we'll be back next week. But in between this week and next week, we have a show at Elmhurst Brewing Company. We'll be there from 7 until 10. Gary J, you're going to be with us.
Yeah.
And Jimmy L and Tony M. And both of us will be there. So hopefully you can come out. We'll be there from 7 until 10. And call ahead for the beer garden. So
Yeah.
Elmhurst Brewing Company, 7 to 10, this Thursday, the 29th.
And this has been Tom and Heather from Shadowfields. This has been Monday in the Studios.
In the
Thanks for being with us
studio.
tonight. Hopefully this was kind of entertaining or interesting in some way.
Mhm. Please like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell. Please do share our YouTube link with other folks, and maybe have a watch party. Who knows? It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So thanks, Becky. Thanks, Tony and Kurt and
Steve.
Steve and anyone else, Gary, Jay, anybody
Yeah.
else who's been online. We're so excited that you joined us. And we're Tom and Heather from Mitts out.
Bye.
Bye.